I don't need to tell you my name anymore, so I'm just going to go straight to showing you the trailer of the movie, which is,
Yo amo la selva, yo amo la Amazonía, porque yo he vivido, yo he crecido. Yo soy de ahí.
Para crecer, el Perú necesita ampliar sus mercados. Lograr cada vez mayor inversión minera, petrolera, gasífera. Por eso los invito a invertir en el Perú. Si yo fuera miembro de la American Chamber, invertiría en el Perú. Ciertamente...
La tierra no se vende, la tierra no se negocia.
Había camiones detenidos a lo largo de toda la Amazonía.
Hemos enviado el orden y la tranquilidad pública.
Pero también 38 policías era insuficiente, pues si afuera tienes a 1.500 personas, era insuficiente.
Nosotros estamos de acuerdo con su protesta. Lamentablemente no lo podemos apoyar.
¡Señores policías! ¡Señores policías! ¡La lucha no es contigo! ¡La lucha no es contigo! ¡La lucha es de gobierno! ¡La lucha es de gobierno!
Estamos en este momento en una situación donde el gobierno ha tenido mucha serenidad y ya está bueno.
Ya ha habido descontrol total.
Y tenía que actuar además para poner finalmente orden y disciplina en este país.
Un gobierno democrático esté haciéndonos matar entre peruanos.
11 policías asesinados.
Indudablemente sucede porque ha existido aquí todo un plan, una instigación y un complot.
Yo quiero decir en este momento que ya estoy con orden de detención.
Por favor, les pido orden.
Es un tema cerrado acá, pero no está cerrado en la Amazonía.
Los policías son héroes porque pelearon con enemigos. ¿Y nosotros qué somos?
So this is us. That's Matthew and Heidi, the co-directors, two directors, and that's our lead character, Alberto. And we went to Peru in 2007, thinking it would be an adventure with a scholarship. We'll go for 9 months, do short stories, and then we thought, well, we'll do maybe 40 minutes, and then we came across an article that Heidi read saying that the Peruvian Amazon was going to be opened up from 30% of just oil exploitation to the entire Amazon after Peru and the US signed a free trade agreement. And in order to sign that free trade agreement, he just brought in new laws, and then indigenous people started protesting, and for us that was very shocking because we at that time had a romantic view of how the jungle should be, and it should just be lush and gorgeous, and what people go there and exploit for oil. And so the protests started beginning, and we started following it. And then later on, it took a really long time to actually gain the trust of the indigenous people because they're not like us, open and say, well, we want to do a story about you. So we went through many characters at the beginning, and Alberto wasn't actually our first character, and we made different trailers, we followed other people, we went to the jungle, sometimes we got turned away. And so this was one of our first trailers before we even began filming Alberto.
Los invito a invertir en el Perú. Y el más interesado es el presidente del Perú. Lograr cada vez mayor inversión minera, petrolera, de industria de transformación.
¿Quién decide el modelo de desarrollo que un país va a seguir? ¿Los gobernantes nomás o debemos decidir todos?
Seems to me very much like the last part of a huge invasion.
Ya no vamos a consentir más empresas para que nuestros hijos, nuestros nietos, que queden con la selva para que puedan trabajar.
What are they defending there? That's what I don't know.
La humanidad no sabe lo que pierde cuando no respete esas culturas.
Yeah, so that was one of our first trailers before even meeting Alberto. And so we went through a huge process of trying to see where we're going to tell the story. If first we were only focusing on oil, but then we understood that the jungle isn't just being exploited for the oil it has, it's being exploited for all its richness. And these companies were going in, and then indigenous people, they were trying to figure out how they're going to kind of stop it from happening. But then the government, they needed to actually bring in investment too to make the country grow. So it took a really long time to understand everybody's points of view, and we always knew we wanted to make a cinematic film, and at the beginning we were just following the communities and how they were dealing with it, but then we started to understand the government, and as we went along, it became, and it took just such a long time because we were going with all the events, and Alberto, what happened, Heidi met him at a conference because every 4 years the indigenous people, they elect their leader. And he was being elected for the second time, and what drew us to him was because he was such a reluctant leader. All he wanted to do was go back home and be with his family and be with his community. But in Lima, you know, it's just all about politics for him. And so anyway, we got to know him, we gained his trust, but in order to gain his trust, we had to go through a process of doing ayahuasca with him, so he could actually say, okay, now, I understand who you are, I know your intentions, and it was even before the protests had started, and there was violence during the protest that we met him, so we already had a backstory and understanding of what he was doing and who he was, and going into the jungle with him, and that was all the pre-production side of it. But then, then the protests happened, people were killed on both sides, indigenous and police officers were killed, and then the government came in and started blaming the indigenous people, so we were sort of forced into production without even having full funding to be in production. We just went along with everything, and Alberto got sent into asylum, and it was just complete chaos, and sometimes things were so out of our control, and we were just, Heidi at one point, she was in the jungle in Nicaragua, Matthew was at the actual protest, and it was in Lima, so we were all over the place, bringing in footage from everywhere, and just filming, and going with what was going on. And then eventually, there were just so many different challenges of even going into the jungle and then being turned away. But then with Alberto, everything opened up for us. Like, the door to the Amazon opened, so we would travel with him and understand exactly how the communities were feeling. But on the day of the violence, nobody knew what was going to happen. And one of the shots that you see where he's running out of the window, nobody knew that was going to happen. And, we became the only people apart from his allies that knew where he was and what was going on with him. And so, yeah, he was in asylum, then he came back, he got arrested, and we were, we filmed everything. And then and then that process began. And then, there were funerals from police officers' side because they were also the victims of what happened. So then the story kept getting bigger and bigger. I mean, bigger than we even imagined, but we were going with it and filmed everybody. And yeah, that's it. Oh, I didn't mean to. Well, I'll show you this trailer.
Lograr cada vez mayor inversión minera, petrolera, de industria de transformación.
Nosotros, los amazónicos, convivimos con la naturaleza. Somos parte de la naturaleza. Creemos de que estamos predicando para salvar la vida, para salvar el planeta. Por eso yo he venido acá.
Mis pueblos me dijeron, anda tú allá y defiende los derechos de los pueblos ahí.
El desarrollo que plantea Occidente es el desarrollo para un poquito de gente.
Estamos aquí para decirle al país y al mundo de cómo se vulneran derechos, convenios internacionales.
Cuando hay recursos como el petróleo, como el gas, como la madera, las tierras de la Amazonía son de todos los peruanos, no de un pequeño grupo que viva allí.
A mí me duele mucho la muerte de los policías y me duele mucho la muerte de mis hermanos. Los policías son héroes. ¿Y nosotros qué somos?
Por ese simple hecho de defender la vida, el gobierno responde con balas.
Lo cierto es que el señor Pizango no está. No sé si estará en Bolivia, si estará en Chile, si estará en Brasil, pero no está en Lima.
El planeta Tierra se nos está escapando de la mano. Habría que preguntarse de cómo debemos unirnos para salvar el planeta.
Yeah, so we went through so many different processes of how we're going to tell it, but we always knew that we needed a main character, and we needed to tell it through somebody that was going to be inspiring, and maybe not to everybody, and we didn't want him to look like a hero neither. And yeah, and then later on, as we went on through the film, and the Amazon was just opening up where they're having logging and mining, and the more we found out and the more visuals that we got of how much they're actually destroying the Amazon rainforest, the more we understood that this can't just be a small-minded thing where we're just focusing on one thing. We have to try and tell the entire story, and the essence of the film was always what's at stake, and the rainforest is at stake, the lungs of the planet's at stake. And then we were just doing it through the people who continued to protest, and there's still protests going on, and even last year we released the film, but even then we could have continued to film because the trial was still ongoing, and then we realized that, well, how are we going to stop filming? Because we kept going and going, and then years later we got an editor. The editing process lasted about 2 years, and with our editor we were really able to form the story and understand what was the goal and what was our mission, and make it into something that was very engaging for the viewer, because first we were going too much into the laws, and it's just such a complex story. How do you make it entertaining? And I mean, I feel like we did a good job at making the best film that we could. And last year alone there were 2 of the biggest oil spills in Peru, but not much is still being done about it. But when we did release it in the theaters in October, because so much of the news, not many Peruvian, and specifically people in Lima, in the city, capital city, they didn't know what was going on in the jungle. They had hardly any idea of, the intensity of what was going on there, because during that time in 2009, when all these protests happened, they had no idea just the immense devastation of it. So for us, having Peruvians see it and tell us that they've changed, they want to become more conscientious and understand what's going on outside of their city, and really just be more helpful in just changing their viewpoints, because the government really manipulated people into thinking that, it was all the indigenous people's fault. So they just saw the indigenous people as savages, and I feel like after doing this film and showing it to them, we've really been able to open up people's minds that before they were just a lot more closed-minded. And last year it came out on Netflix, so everybody can see it, and you can rent it out on VHX. And people ask us all the time, how are we supposed to help, and how, with the digital area, how are we supposed to do it? And we can use it for positive and negative, or no change at all in what we do ourselves. I think it's really important to do things that you want to do, see, and the more engaging you have it, the more consistent message that we put out there, and continue to do it. I feel like, we can try and make the change. That's it. Thank you.